Hello everyone. Today we are starting with the subject environment. The subject is very important in the view of UPSC CSC exam. I'll say why. If you take prelims, you can easily get around 10 to 15 questions. So that means you're going to get almost 10% of the marks that you're needed for prelims. Okay, that is around, if it is 10 questions, you'll be able to score 20 marks. If it is 15 questions, for fortunate, it will be 30 marks. So your 10% of the paper will be easily scored if you know environment subject alone. Similarly, if you take for mains, so minimum to minimum you can score at least of around 30 marks to till 100 marks in mains. So if you get very less questions for unfortunate reasons, you will be able to score around 30 marks. If you get good number of questions, 75 to 100 marks probability are there. So you might be able to score even 100 marks only from the subject called environment. So in point of both prelims and mains, we are starting this series. Okay. So here we will be studying both in point of prelims as well as mains. So you will be able to score around 12 to 15 questions, that is around 20 to 30 marks. So even for mains, you will be able to score around 50 to 100 marks on an average. So it's a very important module. So focus on it. So this subject, entire subject, environment, I'm going to split into 5 different chapters. So one is we'll go to study about basics of ecology. We'll understand what is ecology, what is environment, what are biotic, abiotic, all these components. Okay. So basics of ecology. In this chapter we'll be dealing with some of the basic definitions you can be using in your mains as well as even in prelims. They'll be asking questions directly for the definition. So we'll deal with first chapter, that is basics of ecology. Second chapter, if you see, we will study about types of ecosystems. There are different types like tropical, temperate, different kind of marine, aquatic life form, etc. Different types of ecosystem will deal. Then we'll go for biodiversity. We'll see the different conventions, even the species, also national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. Then in fourth chapter we'll see about climate, pollution, all these factors. Finally, we'll also see about different environmental related laws, movements, even organizations. If you are able to cover all these 5 chapters, both in the view of prelims as well as mains, you will be thoroughly prepared for around 30 marks in prelims, around 75 to 100 marks for mains. So that is the importance of this module. Today we will be starting up with first chapter, that is basics of ecosystem. So in this chapter we are going to deal with 3 points. One is basic definitions. I will teach important definitions to you. You should be thorough with those definitions. Even if they twist and give also, you should be able to note in prelims. For mains, you should be able to use those definitions when and where it is needed. Okay. So basic definition will deal. And then second, we are going for biotic, abiotic factors. We will see all those factors. Third, we will be studying about energy cycle. So different energy cycle. These are, that might be gaseous cycles or rock cycles or sedimentary cycle is what we see. So any of like these 2 cycles we will be covering under energy cycles. These are the main components of this chapter. So just note the first chapter is basics of ecology. Under that we are going to deal with the definitions, first part. Second part, biotic and abiotic factors. And third is energy cycles. Okay. Now we'll start for the first chapter directly. So basic definitions. First definition is the basic definition. What is organism? So an organism is a fundamental functional unit in a ecosystem or ecology. It's a fundamental unit. One organism is a fundamental unit, right? If you want to see still more in detail, the organism starts from the cell. Cell will combine to form tissue, tissues to organ, then organ system, which terms to form an organism, right? So this is what is the organism. Then comes what is population. If these organisms combine to live in one single space, those are called as population. Organisms of a same species. It should be a same species that are in proximity to one another. They are living together, right? So it's of a same species. And the combination of all different population is said to be community. So what is community? All the populations occupying a given area, right? Then comes the ecosystem. A group of organisms interacting. They will be interacting among themselves or with others, among themselves and with the environment. It is said to be ecosystem. So now we have seen what is organism. If it is interacting among itself or themselves also with the environment, then we say it as a ecosystem, right? So this is an example for ecosystem. Here you can see different organisms interacting among themselves, also interacting with the environment. This is said to be ecosystem. Next definition is about landscape. So it is a diverse interacting patches or ecosystem, spatially heterogeneous geographic areas. It's like combination of different ecosystem, okay, which are diversely interacting, okay. These diversely interacting patches or ecosystems are said to be landscape. If you see here, we have both aquatic ecosystem, even terrestrial ecosystem. It's a diverse interacting patches called as landscape. Next is what is biome. Large regional or subcontinental ecosystem characterized by similarity in the vegetation and climate. So it's a large one which is characterized by climate plus vegetation. So if it is classified based on this climate and vegetation, and it is very large regional or subcontinental ecosystem, that is said to be biome. So if you can see here, it is increasing. Organisms to population, then to community, then ecosystem, then landscape and biome. Finally comes biosphere, the global sum of all ecosystems. It can also be termed as the zone of life. The zone of life is entire biosphere. It's a combination of all ecosystem, right? So those are certain basic terms. Apart from that, we have what do you mean by ecology? What is ecology? We know what is ecosystem. Ecology is a study, logy if you see, logy, a scientific study of plants and animals in relation to each other and their environment. We know what is ecosystem. Ecosystem is organisms which are interacting among themselves as well as with the environment. The same thing here. The study of it, the scientific study of plants and animals in relation to each other as well as to their environment. Then if you see what is environment, I mentioned environment, then what is environment? The surrounding of an organism. Say if it is a human, the surrounding of human. It may be biotic things, abiotic things, other humans, everything comes under environment, right? So including both living and non-living components is the environment. Now we understood what is environment, what is ecology, what is ecosystem. Then we'll see some more definitions. The first one is ecological footprint. What is this ecological footprint? Biologically productive area needed to provide for everything people use. So it is a space which is a productive area which will provide all the things needed for a people or an organism, right? Next is what is home range. Home range is the area in which the animal lives and moves on periodic basis. Home range is not just habitat but also periodically where the animal moves. For example, if you see elephant, it will live in its habitat and frequently or on a periodic basis it also moves, right? That is its home range. Okay, what is home range? The area in which an animal lives and moves on a periodic basis. That is home range. Then we go for habitat. See, this is habitat and the bigger set is home range. Okay, what is habitat? It's a natural environment in which a particular species or organism lives. Okay, it's a natural environment where it lives. That is habitat. It should be a natural environment. Okay, then comes a term called niche. What is niche? Very important term. Multiple times they have asked in the exam. What is niche? Habitat and functional role within the community of organisms. So it includes both habitat and its functional role. What kind of functional role it performs? That includes or that's said to be ecological niche or niche. So that's about niche. Next we'll go for the next definition, that is ecological barrier. It's a natural border between two ecosystems. If you see, if there is a marine ecosystem that is near to oceans, there will be mangroves also, mangrove forest, right? And beside that only we'll be having terrestrial ecosystem. It is a barrier one to another ecosystem. There is a short barrier, right? That is said to be ecological barrier. Then we have the term called ecotone. I already mentioned ecological barrier, that is a boundary between two different ecosystems, maybe forest ecosystem and what is this grassland ecosystem, that also you can take. That barrier is called as a ecological barrier. Okay, the transition zone is there, right? See, from forest to grassland to go, you have a transition zone. That transition zone is called as ecotone. Okay, you can see here between forest and grassland there is a boundary. That barrier is also transition, right? This transition zone is called as ecotone. Before entering grassland and before entering forest ecosystem, you have to have that merged ecosystem, right? That is transition zone, said to be ecotone. Then we have a concept of edge effect. See, it's all about the diversity. If you see, if you consider A as the forest ecosystem, B as grassland ecosystem. So the adjacent areas, if you observe, the transition zone will have more different or diverse organisms or species. This count will be more comparatively to individual ecosystem. That is said to be edge effect. See, if it is 3 species in forest ecosystem and 3 different species in grassland ecosystem, these two kind of animals will be present in this transition zone, right? Based on the adjacent ecosystems. In the adjacent ecosystems, the diversity will be more. That is said to be edge effect. There will be 9 species, not just 3, because more diversity. Even the forest animals can adjust, even the grassland animals or species can adjust to that particular region. That is said to be edge effect. Next comes ecocline. So it's a gradual continuous change in a species composition between two ecosystems. We are talking about 2 different ecosystems, right? Ecosystem, we have seen about ecological barrier and transition zone as ecotone. Also here more species will be there, the diversity is more, so it is called as edge effect. So even the species composition also slowly changes. Slowly. That is said to be ecocline. That is a gradual and continuous change in the species composition. If the species composition itself is getting gradually changed, that is said to be ecocline. Okay. Next we'll go for remaining set of definitions. Ketone species. Keystone species. Now if you see the word itself, it's a keystone. That means something important. Important species. What are those actually? Keystone species. A species that has a disproportionately large effect on its environment relative to its abundance. For example, take an ecosystem where more tigers are there. If there are more tigers, then it will kill all the deers. So it has a disproportionately high effect on the environment, right? So its abundance will have a high effect. That is said to be keystone species. One such is tiger, right? Then we will see about ecotype or ecospecies. So what does it mean? A genetically distinct geographic variety within a species. Genetically distinct geographical variety within a species which is adapted to specific environment conditions. The same species but in a different location, geographic variety. So it has developed its own gene composition to adjust to environment condition. That is said to be ecotype or ecospecies. Here if you see the same species in a different gene composition, it got adjusted according to its geographical or climatic conditions. That is said to be ecotype or ecospecies. Then comes ECAD, an organism or a species modified by environment. If it is modified by environment, then it is called as a ECAD. Again, a species getting modified. Then comes invasive species. So you would have heard about water hyacinth, which is the invasive species. What does it mean? First of all, there is one term called exotic species. Exotic species means which is not native to that place. For example, there are the trees called sandalwood, which grows naturally in Karnataka. Those are native species. If those sandalwood are grown in somewhere Himalayas or some other region which is not natural to that particular ecosystem, then it becomes exotic species. If that exotic species is causing harm, see, if you see here, an non-native species whose introduction to an area is likely to cause economic or environmental harm, it is going to do certain harm like water hyacinth, then it is said to be invasive species. Okay. Then we have about ecocide. You know about suicide, right? Side. So similarly it is ecocide. Ecologically there is something harm happening, that is an extensive damage to or destruction of or loss of ecosystem of a given territory. Then it is said to be ecocide. There is a destruction of a given ecosystem. Then it is called as ecocide. The extensive damage of a given territory, particularly about the ecosystem we are talking. Loss of ecosystem is called as ecocide. Okay. For example, we know about wildfires. If you see in the picture also, that ecosystem is getting damaged. This is said to be ecocide. Now the next one comes to be ecological succession. It is observed process of change in the species structure of an ecosystem or ecological community over time. If a species structure is changing over a period of time, then it is called as a ecological succession. So in that also we have two types, primary or secondary, right? So one is primary, second one is secondary. Primary succession is a gradual growth of a ecosystem over longer period. That if it is a grass, it should go to tree. that kind of thing. Okay, that kind of succession, that is gradual growth of a ecosystem, is called as a primary succession. First thing is there should be change in species structure. Okay, in that primary, if it is a gradual growth, then comes secondary, that is it is a series of a community changes which takes place on a previously colonized but disturbed or damaged habitat. So secondary is somewhere where the ecosystem was already there, that got damaged, and then again succession is happening. That is called a secondary. You can see here for primary succession, from bare rock, then comes the lichens, then small annual plant and lichens, later comes the grass and perennials, then grasses, shrubs and shade intolerant trees such as the pines, those slowly evolves. Finally, shade tolerant trees also will evolve like oak and hickory. Okay, this is a primary succession. From bare rock to till trees, it has been succeeded, right? It's a succession, primary succession, from pioneer species to intermediate species and then to climax species or community. If you see secondary succession, initially there will be kind of evolved species but that got damaged. Say for example wildfires. Then after a certain time, annual plants will come, slowly grasses, and then grasses, shrubs, pines, later matured oak and hickory forest. So here also we have secondary succession. Initially it got damaged, and then primary or pioneer species, then intermediate, finally comes the climax community. This is secondary succession. So here comes one important point to note or revise. We already studied this. So there will be a question to arrange in a ascending or a descending order of this hierarchy. Okay, first individual species or organisms. That group of organisms becomes population. Different population living in proximity. Then it comes community. Different community together forms ecosystem. Ecosystem, different diverse ecosystem or landscapes will become biome, and the entire biome, if you combine throughout the world, then it comes a biosphere. We know biome criteria is based on climate and vegetation. So if you see again the organisms, it is from atoms, molecules, cell, tissue, organ, body system, organisms, then population, community, ecosystem and biosphere. So this is the sequence you should be remembering so that you can be able to answer the question so easily. So I didn't show the picture. Now you see ecotone. It's a transition zone, right? Between the forest and the grassland there is a ecotone, that is transition zone. Okay. So here it's a mangroves and this is marine ecosystem. So this is a transition zone. Okay. So we have completed basic terminologies, that is what is organism, population, community, ecosystem, landscape, biome and a biosphere, and this is a sequence. Also we completed what is environment, ecology, then ecological footprint, home range, habitat, ecological niche. Then also about ecological barrier, ecotone, edge effect, ecoclimate and keystone species, ecospecies or ecotype, ECAD, invasive species, ecocide and ecological succession. In that we have covered primary and secondary succession. This is all related to the basic terms of a ecosystem. Now we will go for a second chapter of first module, that is about abiotic and biotic factors. Now we will see here three different points. One is on what are different kind of interactions we have, and what are biotic components. We know that biotic components are also termed to be autotrophs and heterotrophs. There are two types, right? Biotic, autotrophs, that is food producing, and heterotrophs. Then we have abiotic components like micro and macronutrients. We will study in depth about that. First thing is about interactions. In interaction also we have positive, negative and neutral. Okay. If you take positive, see this chapter is important in the view that they'll give you one of the statement then they'll ask you it is example of mutualism or commensalism or proto-cooperation or amensalism, like that. So for that you should be knowing what is mutualism or what is commensalism, etc. Okay. So first, if you see mutualism, the term says mutualism, organism, a population, community, ecosystem, landscape, biome, biosphere, or all these things we already covered. So if mutualism is both of them are getting benefited, two different species are getting benefited, then it is said to be mutualism. Okay. One such example is lichens. Lichens, we know, right, it is made up of two components, that is algae and fungi. They are mutually benefited, algae and fungi. Then also you can also give another example, that is rhizobium bacteria, which will give nitrates to plants, and plant will give the needed nutrition to the rhizobium bacteria, right? Those two are example for mutualism. Then comes pro-cooperation. The association is benefited to both, but it is not necessary or essential for survival. It is not essential for survival, but both are get benefited. Examples, sea anemone and hermit crab, if you see. So those are benefited by each, okay. And also pollination of flowers, right? These are for proto-cooperation. Then comes a commensalism, association of different species in which only one of the organism is benefited, but other is not adversely affected. Okay, it's not affected also, it is not benefited also, but one species definitely get benefited. For example, epiphytes. If you see in the tropical forest, rainforest and all, epiphytes will grow on these trees. So that is not harming tree, but it is getting benefited. Epiphytes are getting benefited, right? One organism getting benefited, but it is not damaging the other organism. Then it is called as a commensalism. So one is epiphytes, another one is, if you see suckerfish and a shark. So suckerfish will get feeded for itself, and whatever remaining is there, suckerfish will be get feeded by those remaining whatever food is there of a shark. So that is a combination here. It's a commensalism. Suckerfish is benefited, whereas it is not harming the shark, right? Then we'll see about negative interaction. One, that is competition, exploitation, even predation. All these are negative because it will affect both the species negatively. It will damage both of them, competition, exploitation and predation. So then we have a amensalism. It's like one organism is inhibited or destroyed while the other organisms remains unaffected. One organism is destroyed but other is not even getting benefited, but it is unaffected, that's all. So that is said to be amensalism. This is how the options they will be giving also, okay. Next we have a parasitism. We know, right, what is parasitism? Parasite is an organism which derives nourishment from the tissues of another large organism. They are called as a host, right? So that is what is called as a parasite. On one organism it is getting its nutrition and it is all harming the other organisms. That is called as parasitism, right? So then we have another terms, symbiosis. So symbiosis, close and often long-term interaction between two different biological species. Example, nitrogen fixing rhizobium bacteria and coral reef epiphytes and permanent parasite. So they have a long-term interaction. If it is a long-term, then it is said to be symbiosis. Long-term interaction should be there. We are not considering a positive or negative, but we are considering only whether it is long-term or short-term. If it is a long-term interaction, then we call it as a symbiosis. Example, coral reef is made up of, comment below. So then we have rhizobium bacteria, which already we discussed, okay. Then we have amensalism. So I already discussed, it is not getting benefited, but other organism is getting destroyed. That is called as a amensalism. It is example of negative interaction, okay. One such example is antibiosis, okay. Antibiosis is the production or secretion by an organism which is harmful to others, and it is also not getting any benefit out of it. So that is called as commensalism. That example is antibiosis. Okay. Now we will see about biotic components. So very simple, just in this chapter you should understand basics of ecosystem and all, that's all, don't worry much. So biotic components, if you see, we have two types, autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs, which are called as producers also. So they utilize inorganic substances, okay, like different, we know this potash, nitrogen, all these things they will utilize, even sunlight, and build a complex organic substance like whatever food we eat, right, by fixing solar energy, using solar energy, water, etc. Example is green plants. We would have studied in our school days also. Then it is heterotrophs, also called as consumers. Consumers cannot produce their own food and they depend on producers. So example, animals, man. Then we have a decomposers, third one. Decomposers also called as saprotrophs. Those will degrade the complex organic substance into simpler compounds. So whatever organic compound, complex organic compound produced by green plants, those will be disintegrated by these saprotrophs. Okay, they will disintegrate organic substance into simpler compounds. Example, bacteria, fungi and protozoa. You can't say virus, okay? So I am mentioning here. You also note this because this might be a question. Bacteria, fungi and protozoa are decomposers. If we see in depth, so autotrophs, we have already seen green plants, and heterotrophs we have seen now it's consumers. So this is wrong. So this is saprotrophs. So these are like heterotrophs. In that heterotrophs we have consumers, then we have decomposers or saprotrophs. Okay, this I explained already. Then if you go to abiotic components, we have different types. One is organic, another is inorganic substance. Okay, organic, if you see, it's proteins, lipids, those things. Inorganic substance, in that also we have micro and macro. So macro means those components which are used in large quantity. For example, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, potassium, calcium, all these things. Micro, if you see, we require these in a smaller quantities like copper, manganese, selenium, zinc, molybdenum, boron, silicon, etc. Okay. There are also physical factors considered to be abiotic like climatic, light, temperature, rainfall, atmosphere, all these things. Okay. So these are some of the physical factors also. Even edaphic factors. Edaphic means soil related, minerals, etc. Okay. Even topography is considered here like altitude and steepness. So this is about organic. We have seen inorganic substance. Now organic, I already told, carbohydrates, protein and lipids. Okay. Then we have physical factors also. That is what we have seen under abiotic components. Then we have a energy flow. So energy flow we study first on food chain and food web. What is food chain? Energy has to flow. So for that we should know what is food chain and what is food web. Food chain and web. What is food web? First thing. Then what is the pyramid of ecology? Then also we'll go with biogeochemical cycles. So pyramids of ecology we will see about number, energy, etc. And biogeochemical cycle we'll see both gaseous as well as sedimentary cycles. Okay. We'll start with energy flow first. First we'll understand two terms. What is photosynthesis? We know, right? Inorganic substances are converted to organic using sunlight, or you can say simply the process of producing food using the sunlight. Okay. Then we have chemosynthesis also. That means certain bacteria can synthesize their food even in the absence of sunlight. With sunlight, fine, it is photosynthesis. Some bacteria without sunlight also they produce, that is called as chemosynthesis. Okay. Then we have what is food chain. So transfer of food energy from its source that is plants, to higher organisms. That is through series of organisms with repeated eating and being eaten. So the successive level of energy flow constituting the link of a food chain are called as the tropical levels also. So if one organism getting eaten up, I will show. So the grass will be eaten by grasshopper, and then that by this thing, and then rat will be eaten by snake, and this we have seen in school days, right? So one is getting eaten by other thing. This is called as a food chain. So if this is interlocked, then it is called as a food web. So this interlocking is there in this figure. If you see, so frog will be eaten by owl or a snake. This kind of interlink will be there. If this is actually the truth in nature. It's a food web. It's a interaction or interlinking of different food chain is called as a food web. These two are simple definitions. So one is eaten by other thing, right? So the successive level is said to be tropic levels. So this is one tropic level, the other thing is second tropic level, like that. It is said to be tropic level. So grazing food chain start with the green plants we have seen, and detritus food chain. There will be decompose also, right? So that is said to be detritus food chain. It start with dead organisms. We know, right? Decomposers decompose the organic matter. That will start from a dead organic matter. That chain is said to be detritus food chain. Okay. Then we have pyramids of ecology. In that 3 pyramids we are going to study. One is of energy, second biomass, third is energy. So first, if you see pyramid of energy. Pyramid of energy is always upright. That means energy will have a 10% rule. So 10% only will move forward to the next tropic level. If 100% is there at producer, the next step only 10%. The next step again only 0.5, like that. Okay. So pyramid of energy is always upright, as energy must travel from bottom to top. Each tropic level contains less energy, 10% rule, than the preceding level. Okay. Then we have pyramid of biomass. So biomass, mass, right? Weight. We are talking about the weight, biomass. In grazing ecosystem, it is upright. Why it is upright in grazing ecosystem? Because we have grasses below and deers or other animals above. So weight will be more for animals, right? So it is upright. If you consider in aquatic ecosystem, we have inverted biomass. Why? Because see, whales, fishes and all will be having higher weight, but they are less in number, whereas phytoplanktons, which will keep on growing very rapidly, whose mass will be more. That's why it is inverted. Okay, in biomass pyramid, if you see, it is upright in case of grassland, and it is inverted in case of aquatic or marine ecosystem. Why? Because number of shark and all will be less compared to the rapid growth of phytoplanktons, the plants. Okay, in marine ecosystem or aquatic ecosystem. Then if you see about number pyramid, it is upright in grassland and aquatic ecosystem. Numbers are more. Okay, but it is upright, but there is inverted in case of tree ecosystem. Okay, because if you see number of organisms that are dependent on a tree is more. So number is more on tree. Many plants will be there. Many birds will be there on single tree. So that is why if you see, it is inverted. Whereas in grassland ecosystem or aquatic, if you see, the grass will be more in grassland compared to animals. So it is upright. Even aquatic, we already said, shark will be less in number fishes compared to phytoplanktons, which are rapidly growing and growing. Yes. So that's why it is also upright. But tree ecosystem, it is inverted. One tree contains many birds. So tropical ecosystem, it is inverted. Okay. This is about pyramids of ecology. Now we'll go for biogeochemical cycle. Under that gaseous cycle, if you see, we have oxygen, carbon and water. We have studied all these things in our school itself, but we'll just revise. So if you take oxygen, when it will be released? It will be released during photosynthesis. When it will be consumed? During respiration. These are also asked in the question paper. Simple questions will be asked, okay? You should just know the common things. Then if you take carbon dioxide, these are released during burning of coal, volcanic action, death of vegetation, etc. So these are consumed during photosynthesis, right? Then if you see water cycle, so evaporation. Transpiration is from plants, okay? Evaporation is directly from the water bodies. This is the difference between transpiration and evaporation. If it is directly from the water bodies, it is evaporation. If it is from a plant, it is transpiration. So through this, it will come to atmosphere. Then through respiration will consume, right? Or even respiration will release. Through consumption will consume it, okay? This is a cycle of these three gaseous. Next, under biogeochemical cycle, we have a rock cycle. Under that we have phosphorus, sulfur, even nitrogen is there, okay? Phosphorus, it is purely rock based biogeochemical cycle, okay? Through weathering phosphate rocks, we get phosphorus, and phosphating bacteria will be there. Through leaching also it will go, okay? Next, if you see sulfur, weathering of rocks again through volcanic eruption, decomposition of organic matter, excretion, burning fossil fuels. Then we have nitrogen. Through nitrogen fixation, it will come to the plants, and death of vegetation again go back to the plant or soil. So that is said, that will go to ammonification and then nitrification in the soil. So then biomass also, if you burn that, then we will get nitrogen to atmosphere and denitrification back to the soil, okay? This is the cycle. I just simply explained because these are well known facts. For revision, just go through it. So I just shown the figure, nitrogen cycle. If you want, just have a look. So nitrogen in atmosphere, so it will be fixed through nitrogen fixing bacteria like rhizobium and all. So once it get into soil after the death of this plants, it goes through nitrification, and then it will be denitrified going back to the atmosphere, and again if it is coming back, it is nitrogen fixation and all will happen. You can just have a look into it, but not that important. You should know the cycle, that's all. This is all about this chapter. We have covered basic definitions, and also we have covered biotic, abiotic factors, as well as energy cycles, biogeocycles also, and interaction as well. If you know this much, you will be able to get 1 or 2 questions right in the exam. We will also discuss about PYQs from next month once we complete all the modules. That's all for today. Have a good day.